Welcome to Conversations. When I started this show, one of the things I sort of fantasized about was that I'd have regular guests, people who came back again and again, and conversation would get better. And today we're going to do that. And I'd like you to meet Sharon Reynolds. Sharon and I are good friends, and we're going to skip all the biographical details because we did that before. Just to say that she has a gay daughter. She and I go to the same church. We're buddies. We have a lot of fun. And today, we are going to talk about marriage. Maybe as part of a series, get some gay people in, maybe not, but we're going to share our wisdom about living with other people. Sharon has done it twice. I've done it 5 times. Sharon, a lot of gay people, I think, just like everybody, the grass is always greener on the other side, and gay people think that if they could get married, everything would be all right, or if they found a partner, everything would be all right, and then they get in them, and it isn't always all right. And so, let's see, what should our first question be? Are heterosexuals happy all the time in marriage? How's that?
That is the biggest myth that's ever been perpetrated on humanity. No. And I think that straight people have this same delusion that you will find the one perfect person and you will fade off into the sunset and be happy ever after. Well, that just doesn't happen. There are too many variables, and we are imperfect people, therefore our relationships will be imperfect.
You had 2 husbands now. The first one, could we get tell me a little bit about that?
I was married when I was about 22, and for 3 years, very much in love, had 1 child, was pregnant with my second, and my husband was killed.
In Vietnam?
Just before Vietnam became popular.
Okay.
He was a helicopter pilot, a graduate of the Naval Academy, and
On that one, because it was fairly short, did you still think of it as a great romance, or did you have a chance for it to kind of cool down or settle into a groove? Do you see where I'm going with that?
yes. Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Both and both.
Okay.
Yes, it would be very easy to romanticize about that time because I was very young and passionate, and it was lovely, and it was beginnings and that sort of thing. And for everything, there's a time and a place. And I sort of put it in a nice box and tied a ribbon on that, and I put it away. Once in a while I bring it out, it will come unbidden, but it doesn't interfere with the present, let's put it that way. By the time I had married for the second time, it was a whole different relationship.
Well, 3 years is kind of standard for a lot of gay relationships.
For a lot of straight
Well, a lot of straight, yeah. I had 7.5 with my first lover, and then they went sort of downhill from there. And I got to the point where I defined a lover as someone who lasted at least 2.5 years. I believed at the time it would last forever, and we lived together. And as I say, there were 5 of those. And so I had no experience with what you and Marv have had, which is 34?
So just about 34 years of marriage.
Something that intrigues me is one day when I was telling you about someone, you said, "Oh, Marv and I have fallen in and out of love at least 15 times or something."
Oh, many, many more times than that.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the ins and outs of day-to-day.
I read statistics at one point that said you're madly in love 10% of the time, you hate them an equal amount of the time, you're indifferent about, 70% of the time. What have we gotten up to? 90%? And it's wonderful the rest of the time. That's pretty standard. And I'm a little tongue-in-cheek, but there's a lot of truth to that. You know, when you have two people living together, there are bound to be things that irritate you. There are bound to be problems, etc. But there are a lot of compensations too. But to think that you are always going to be in love is very detrimental to a happy marriage.
What about in lust? Does sexual desire come and go and
Yes,
fade?
yes. You become preoccupied, you're tired, there's health problems. That's one of the things that you have to work out. You know, different people have different needs. That's one of the compromises that you make. With children, they demand your time. They are an infringement on privacy. They're wonderful, but they're a lot of work. They're a very labor-intensive hobby, I'll tell you that.
And you've got grandkids now.
Yes, yes.
Before we talk a bit more about marriage, I want to ask you about the worm castings. We talked about you were raising worms the last time we talked.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that, and then we'll go back to marriage.
Well, I'll try to be brief,
Oh,
which
no,
is
no, that's all
difficult
right.
for me, as you understand. But I really think that this worm composting is the wave of the future. Where you've got all these free things, and you feed them to the worms, and you come out with a product that's eminently usable. It makes flowers grow. It's wonderful. The compost is a wonderful fertilizer, and it's also a good, if you wet it down, dilute it, it makes an insecticide, a natural insecticide. Yes.
Tell me about that.
I swear.
Okay.
I swear.
No, I
It's
believe
called-
everything you say.
It's called
Sharon.
worm tea. And I got interested in this. A party at Andy's house. I met this nice botany professor from the university and his wife, and he gave me my starter worms. They're red wigglers, and you used to be able to find them in nature in piles of horse manure or cow manure, but now with our socialization or civilization, and you have the worming that you do with the animals. We have killed off a lot of our worms. But they are using, in some institutions, large worm boxes to do their organic waste. If you could do it, you could do it in a hospital, you could do it in a school, just get the kids to separate their
You're
their
serious
garbage.
about this, then?
I'm totally serious about this.
How large a production do you have?
Oh, for mine, I just do my own garbage at home. 2 weeks and my scraps from the table that are not meat scraps have become a nice, rich, dark, loamy material that I can use to plant my flowers. It doesn't smell, and it's sanitized. Whatever goes through the worms is sanitized. They're the intestines of the world.
That's about as much as I care to hear about
That's
worms.
what I thought.
The grandkids are all right?
Pretty much they are.
And the horses?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to brag, my oldest grandson tested in the top 2% of the math students in the United States last year.
Wow. Okay, let's go back to this marriage thing. What did you expect when you were young?
Well, fortunately, I had a good example in my parents as to what a real marriage is. I saw them have very troubling times, and I saw them argue, and I saw discord, but I also saw a lot of affection, humor, and a deep, deep commitment to raising their children and making their life work. And I saw them through this stage of discord and stress into their older years, which were truly golden. And they had really, really earned the peace and the companionship and the affection with which they ended their marriage. My father died about 6 years ago.
Your mother is still alive.
Yes,
She's
I'm
80.
87.
Wow. How lucky you are.
I am very blessed, very blessed. I had a childhood that I really feel grateful for. But my parents did not give me the impression that marriage was easy, that it was to be taken lightly, and that it was only a romantic fling, and that I would always be ecstatically happy.
You know, we talked earlier today, and one of the things that we talked about is that, and I asked you, was whether your mother told you, you know, what to expect, etc. And gay people don't have that, or at least I didn't. You know, my dad didn't take me in tow, and he tried to explain the birds and the bees at one point, but he never said, you know, you're going to get bored, you know, because he didn't know what it would be like with a man. And so we don't have that. We kind of look at our parents, we look at heterosexuals a lot and say, oh, you know, it's all wonderful, that's going to be. And I think in that sense, straight people have it easier. They can go to mom or dad.
We have more support from society for our relationships, for marriage, and gay people do not. Well, single people that just live together do not have the support. And there are some advantages, I think, you know, looking at it just objectively, to living with somebody of the same sex. I mean, it would be so much easier to explain to another woman my point of view on something. And here I am having to deal with a man. Bless his sweetheart, he is dense about things sometimes.
He never talks back to you. What are you talking about?
Oh, he doesn't.
You just explain and he'll sit there.
He's a master at passive resistance, yeah. But it's a little like, I guess, My Fair Lady when it says, why can't she be more like a man? You know, why can't he think with both sides of his brain? A woman would understand why you should cry in that movie, or why that particular song or Andre Bocelli is to die for, you know, chick things.
Ah, okay.
He doesn't always get chick things.
Well, actually, sometimes in gay relationships, one is the... Have you found this? I have found that in almost all of my long-term relationships, 2.5 years or whatever, that there is almost a picking of sides. Okay, I'm going to be the intellectual, so you're not. You're going to be the one who does all of the detail work, and I'm going to be the one who plans. And you wouldn't have the way of knowing this, but I've found that that really is arbitrary quite often, because I'll go from one relation, and the next one I'm going to be...
You'll be the other.
I'll be the other one. It's almost as if you have to choose sides, and I find that unfortunate.
I kind of like to look at it as strengths and weaknesses. Of course, there are some jobs that nobody wants to do. I mean,
and you give those to your husband.
Yeah, of course. That's the way it should be. That's the way God intended it. No, usually I think it goes to the wife. My grandsons one time I told them to clean the bathroom, please. And they said, they were goading me a bit, that was woman's work. After a severe tongue lashing, they learned how to clean the bathroom. And I'm proud to say that my grandsons are bathroom trained.
Okay.
But that usually falls to the woman. But now, who does it in a man-to-man relationship? If men usually leave it for their wife, Marva die rather than clean the sink.
I always like doing it together. You know, picking a day and, you know, putting on raggedy clothes and doing it together. And I miss that. I haven't been in a tight relationship for a long time. I've got a little lesbian in my life now who does that. She comes over, she changes clothes, she gets into my long nightshirt, and we tear into things, and she's helping me redecorate now. And, I think everyone should have a little lesbian in their life.
I agree. I totally agree.
But to go back to that point of choosing, I think often you're raised to think that a relationship should be one of one thing and one of another, and maybe it's just gay people, but I think there is a tendency to pick, choose. I'm going to be this, you're going to be that. And I think it's really unfair, and I think from the standpoint of age, I advise my young friends don't fall into that trap.
Yeah, stereotypes, for instance, that, straight relationships are victims of stereotypes too. You know, woman's work, man's work. And as emancipated as I like to think of myself, I will still catch myself up short. I will take the advice. I did this once, took the advice of an inmate of Warm Springs as to how to fix my car rather than ask another woman. You see what I'm getting at?
No, I don't. I see.
I expect, because you're a man, that you
I
will know
see.
more about the car, so I will listen, and you may know zip. And the girl that's sitting next to you might be just very, very handy at repairing cars, and I ought to, ask her.
Dan over there takes me a lot of places, and I couldn't pick his car out of, I think it's black. I'm not sure.
So I shouldn't ask you how to repair my car?
No, don't ask.
Okay.
But I can cook and things like that.
Well, you taught me a lot about crocheting rugs.
Yes,
That was one of the first
beautiful
things that drew me to you, was I could pick your brain about crocheting rugs.
And I told you just earlier today how to do square corners.
That's
so you
right.
can do
I'm going home and
rectangles
I'm going to
now.
try it. Yes, add to my repertoire. So,
Anybody you get with, sooner or later, is going to drive you crazy. You're going to find things that,
absolutely.
and I know in relationships there gets a point I just hate where they are driving you crazy and you know it's not their fault, and you somehow want to tell them, hey, the reason I'm all uptight and kind of acting funny is that, you really are driving me crazy, but it's not your fault, because if you tell them that, they'll think it's their fault. What about long-term relationships? Do you ever get over that? Do you ever iron these things out, or does Marv still drive you crazy?
Absolutely. Absolutely bonkers. Just like the forks. I like my kitchen drawers. I like them silver separated. I like it put in the drawer neatly. And he will just dump things in. And you'll sit there and it'll ruin your whole day. And it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you have to guard against that. You really can get in big trouble if you do other people bodily harm, and especially for such small things. But yes.
You talk about this, or have you? Or?
Yes, it works best if we can joke about it. A little humor goes a long way, and I'm sure that you've found that in your relationships. If we
Not
can
really,
laugh
no.
about things, they don't like to
I'm
laugh.
kind of humorless.
Oh, I can't believe that, Greg.
Well, when it comes to relationships.
No, you have to be able to laugh. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. It's not good to laugh at your partner, unless he starts it.
All right.
Yeah, remember that. No, don't laugh at him first. That can be a little dangerous, I think. But no, in my family, humor was a great defense, if not carried to extreme. But when times were hard, if you could laugh about it, why, it diminished the problem.
Again, we were talking earlier, you and Marv have, because of family, have different points of view and different capabilities. He, like a lot of men, reticent, quiet, and you open, outgoing. Have you tried to change him, or have you finally accepted that?
Absolutely. I chipped away and I tried just everything until I finally realized it wasn't going to work. And I've been much happier. I'm not perfect at it. I still get into the molding mode, but for the most part, those things are him, and I have to learn to honor those things as well as the things that I most love about him.
What about learning from him?
Oh, I have learned a lot.
Well, I mean, things that he has a way of doing things and you have a way of doing things, you think he's wrong, and then later in the relationship you find out that... Ever have that happen? No.
No, I'm always right.
Ah, I figured it was...
You let yourself in for that one.
Yes, I did.
No, I have learned a great deal from him. He's surprisingly well informed on subjects, and I like learning from him.
What about holding on and possessiveness? I have a tendency to want to do, I want to do everything with everybody, or at least earlier in my life I did. Want to do everything with that person. Probably because my dad worked 9 to 5 as a mechanic. He wasn't a lodge person, he wasn't a joiner. So he came home at 5, I had a mom, I had a dad, a brother, and we did pretty much everything together. And I think that carries over in the way I want to do everything. But in long term, what about...
Well,
I see you a lot alone. You and I go places alone.
Yeah. I really believe that it's totally unfair to believe that or make one person be the fulfillment of all your needs. I need people in my life more than Marvin does. I need people that are interested in music. I need people that are interested in horses. I need people that are interested in sewing. I need, other things that I get interested in. And so I seek friends that to have those interests. And I think that that can enrich the marriage if it's not carried too far, where you become obsessed with these other interests that exclude your mate or your partner, or if you find someone more attractive because of their interest, you have to guard against that. Just because you're married and have even been married for a good many years, that does not mean that you can't be attracted to another individual.
Let's go down that path.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask you about fidelity or infidelity in your
My
marriage.
children did. They
You're
asked
kidding.
me, yes, one time, I don't know why the subject came up, they said, Mom, did you ever have an affair? And I said, no, nobody ever asked me.
Well, all right. Now we
So
know.
that
I
kinda
wasn't
takes
going to
care of
ask
that,
you. I was going to ask in a general way, when people in a relationship do something really bad, I don't mean, killing people, but where it really, you think it's unforgivable and it's going to take a long time to get over. Any advice, thoughts on that? Has Marv ever, or you ever felt that you did something where...
Not really. Something like that to me would be infidelity, because I feel infidelity is very, very hurtful. And I don't think that that means having sexual congress with another human being constitutes unfaithfulness. Depending on the individual, just becoming preoccupied or enjoying the company of another person can constitute unfaithfulness too. If they take the devotion that should be given to their partner. Maybe I'm a little strict on this, but
that's
I really,
interesting.
I think that there are things short of having sexual relations with a person that constitute infidelity.
Well, yeah, in San Francisco, when I lived there, and the gay ghetto, and sex was so available and was pretty much taken for granted, I never minded so much if a partner had sex with other people. That seemed natural to me, but what really bothered me was if they, as you say, if they spent more time with him, if it seemed like they wanted to spend more time with them than somebody else, than with me, which is kind of, I'm just being honest, but I'm glad you brought that up, because there is that it isn't, fidelity isn't necessarily just a matter of sex.
No. I knew a married couple They had been married for some time, and the husband would flirt outrageously. And so in mixed company, he might spend an entire evening hovering over a sweet young thing and hurt the wife incredibly. Now, he didn't go to bed with this woman. He didn't have an affair with this woman, but he dishonored his wife and he dishonored their relationship. He made her look foolish publicly, and that was infidelity to my idea. That hurt worse, as you say, than if he had just quietly done something physical on the side. But he publicly humiliated her, and this went on time after time after time. It was routine in a social setting for him to find the most attractive woman in the room and flirt for the rest of the evening, and then the poor wife would, try to win his attentions back. I think she needed to take a nice broad axe and given him a couple of whacks. Frankly, he deserved it. I don't know that he was ever unfaithful, but, physically, in the sense that, that people assume, but I felt that he was. They had raised children together. It was a long-term commitment, and I think he made her look foolish. He dishonored her.
Well, I'm thinking about other societies where it's rather standard for husband to have a mistress, but he's discreet about it, it's understood, and there isn't that kind of public humiliation of, bringing them into the family or, on social occasions, et cetera, et cetera.
Wasn't it the French prime minister, one of the past prime ministers, that their wife and the mistress were pictured at the funeral side by side?
Yes. They both showed up.
I think we have a different idea. Americans have this myth that I mentioned before of romantic love. Europeans marry for different reasons. There are so many reasons to marry, and lust or passion or what is only one of them. There's companionship. It's a business arrangement. It's a contract on many, many levels. And I think that we fool ourselves sometimes, but I'm not sure that Americans would ever be happy with an arrangement where the mistress is the accepted thing. But the Europeans seem to get along just fine with that idea.
I'm moving at a point in my life where I don't think one person, I don't want just one person. I love enough people. I want to keep them in my life, and I don't want someone coming in to upset that apple cart. I just want a few more people to fill the open niches, I'm a little lesbian who comes and helps me, clean up at 4 in the morning, and we sit down and listen to a musical afterwards, and, I
don't think being married precludes you having deep friendships outside of the relationship. I really don't. There's a religious writer, Bruckner, who says that it's a sin to live only unto yourselves, meaning a married couple. And I suppose this would mean a gay couple if they excluded everyone else, if they only lived for their own welfare, if they didn't share. I think one of the things that a committed relationship has is it strengthens other people around it.
It's funny you should say that.
That's, to me, the touchstone, the test for a good relationship. Does it nurture other people around? It doesn't have to be children. Does it nurture friends? Does it nurture society? Does it stabilize?
There's a passage in Lady Chatterley's Lover, and D.H. Lawrence, and someone says that there are people whose marriage means more to others than it means to them. That they are at ease in their relationship. The people around them believe in marriage more because they are there as an
That's right.
example. And, you know, they take it for granted it's okay, but they do so well at it that it actually strengthens all the people around
Yes,
them.
I think that this is what a good marriage is. I know this one couple, they have 12 children, and they have always had a very loving relationship, a very happy family, and you love to be around these people. Not all big families are happy, but this family was, and they just like a wave, like you skip a rock and you see the waves undulate out from where it strikes. That love going out and embracing other people and nurturing other people. When you meet Dan and where he's working, you know, his zest for life, and to which I'm sure that Joyce contributes greatly, it makes you feel good for the rest of the day. I would not like to think of them as not married and not together. You know, it's very hard in a divorce or when a relationship breaks up. Even my daughter, with her first lesbian lover, we loved Michelle. And when the girls decided to break up after 5 years, we all were very sad. We just thought, well, we just want her in our life. And we don't want to lose her.
We have two friends, you and I, and who shall remain nameless, but when I introduced them to each other, I made them promise that when they broke up, there would be none of this having to choose sides and da-da-da-da-da, and they would, you know, and they did break up, but so far they've been pretty good about it.
That's what makes it hard, is having to choose sides, because you usually like both individuals.
When you got married, how committed did you, this is hard, I don't know. Gay people go into it, you know, I mean, the first one I really thought that it was going to last, and I was buying wines to keep for 15 years or so, and after the first one, well, okay, maybe not, but when the first one died, so you went into the second one, how committed did you feel?
Very.
Just very.
Very. I was raised, you don't enter into marriage. You take your vows very, very seriously. You know, I'm not Catholic, I'm not bound by anything like this, but I just really feel you honor your commitments. That's a word that is so often tossed aside now. It's expedient to put it aside. And I feel that commitments are important. Commitments to friends, commitments to my country, commitments to my husband, to my children. I feel that those must be honored. I can't honor myself if I do not honor my commitments. And that is one of the most important commitments of my life.
I'll go back to that, because we sort of got lost in the fidelity thing. What do you do in a long-term relationship when it goes sour, it sort of feels bad, you don't want to get out of the relationship, you know, but it's just not working? Do you talk about it, or do you just let it go and hope that it'll pass, or do you know it will pass because it's happened before, or?
Sometimes it doesn't pass. Sometimes you have to accept it. It's like growing older. There are certain things that, as you grow older, you have to give them up, and you grieve for it. You know, I don't ski anymore, and I sit and think about it very fondly and so forth. But many different things. Some things you have to give up. Some things you compromise. Sometimes you jumpstart, and then that old mainstay humor. If you can introduce a little fun into things, it goes a long way.
Lest anyone think we're talking just about sex, had I been in a long-term relationship, I hardly ever dance anymore. I never liked it that much, but, you know, if I was with somebody who liked it, okay, we'd do some heavy drugs, go to a disco, and, you know, I could be talked into it. No way that would happen now. Now, if I'd been in the same relationship and the other person kept, you know, I would give it up. It would be probably a thing of the past, and he would have to deal with that.
I did. I gave up dancing for Marvin.
Marvin doesn't, yeah?
It's not his favorite thing to do. If you gave him a choice of what you would most like to do, I forced him into, I didn't think I was forcing, but square dancing. I loved square dancing. That was something I did a lot of when I was a teenager. I had friends, and we'd drive 150 miles to a square dance, etc. So we took the lessons, and Marvin didn't really enjoy it. He didn't say a lot at first, but I would start to get these invitations on the night that we were to square dance on Friday. Wouldn't you like to go to a movie? And I'll take you to dinner, and little alternative plans until I finally caught on. And I said, you don't want to go square dancing? No.
Yeah.
Well, it would have helped him a long time before that if he would have just been honest. So I gave up dancing for Marvin. That was the end of my dancing career.
I had a friend who last spring refused to go see Gladiator, the movie. Hated Roman movies. And I wanted to see it with him. You know? No way. Sometimes things just can't be worked out.
Oh, no. I watch Lethal Weapon 2 with Marvin, but I go to chick movies with my girlfriends. I've learned that.
When and how do you decide? We talked about not changing people, but when do you feel that your partner really is lacking in something and you want to support him, and how do you make that decision, that it's something really important? Have you ever had to handle that where...
How serious do you mean? Can you give me a for instance? I've messed up a lot of times. I'm a great rescuer, and you know, my poor victim will think, you know, kick and scream and say, please, I don't want to be rescued. I've done that.
I guess what I was thinking about is, let's say a person has an attitude towards their family and can't seem to get over it, and you would like to help them, and you know that getting over that hang-up that they have really would be good for them. Have you ever had that kind of experience where you said, I can't, we earlier talked about not being able to change people, but on the other hand, when something comes up where you really think that they should change or it would be for their benefit, any way to handle that situation?
Not that it's been consistently successful. I have no great words of wisdom there. I have a little mantra that I adhere to because I get very upset about things, you know, when I can't change them, you know. I'm sure that this is the right thing to do, just like I was sure that it was the right thing to do to get Marvin involved in the square dancing. He needed an outside interest, you know, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't like it, so I had to pull back. But my little mantra is, I can recognize the problem, I don't have to solve it. And I just keep repeating that, and it keeps me from being a repeat offender and rescuing people that don't want to be rescued. The older I get, the more I believe people should take possession of their own problems. If they ask you for help, and you feel comfortable with that, yes. Now, we've never had anything big like drug addiction or something like that. I don't know how I would handle that. Say my partner I know a young couple that just got married, and oh, I want so much for that marriage to be happy, and they really went into it with a lot of soul searching and commitment, but I feel that the wife has a drinking problem, and it's going to have to be addressed someday. And I don't know how I would handle that if that were.
Well, that's a good example of one of those things that I was trying to get to, where, you know that...
Well, I'm afraid there are some things that I might have to bail on, and that might be one of them. I'm somewhat intolerant of excessive drinking. I had an alcoholic father, and I know some of the pitfalls, and I'm just not going to live with that.
As an alcoholic, that kind of touches
Deeply. Some people have bailed on me, and then other people have stood by me through thick and thin.
I would stick with you more as a friend than I would as if we were a marriage partner. Now, this may sound odd, but if we are friends, I can get away from you. You cannot damage me. And I can take a time out. But full-time commitment, that's heavy.
Sharon, this has been a delight for me.
Well, thank you, Greg.
And the show is called Conversations, and you're back a second time. You feel more at ease. I know I feel more at ease, and I'm really thrilled. We haven't solved anything. We haven't really even had a plan to follow this afternoon, but it's been fun. And normally I shake hands with people, but can I hug?
You certainly can.
Okay.